Hello, it's Lizzie with Dragon Tree Emporium, and this is Reading with Lizzie, not Crafting with Lizzie. That's every other Monday. So they have, I think, hopefully, finally finished the construction to the wing of my apartment, which means I get to have my window open. I am very happy. It's still a little bit warm to have it just open all day, so we kind of go off and on. But right now it's open, it's nice. I am happy. Okay, down to business. So I meant to put up a video last week, and everything crashed. Just bad. Editing program crashed, recording program crashed. I recorded everything on my phone, and then I couldn't get the videos to work in the editing program, and then my computer stopped working, so I had to do a factory reset. It's been a week, but I have it all reset. I am using different recording program and a different editing program. I am not going to record on my phone until I can get this figured out. But with that said, this is going to be a double up. So, however, even if it is a double up, I still only have like 5 completed books and 3 current reads, and of course, a list of possibilities for the rest of the month. But it is almost October, which means I am going to be starting Horror-a-thon, the main portion of TBR Harvest, and Hocus Pocus Readathon. Why do I do this to myself? Why? So, we have those to look forward to. I do not have the TBRs completely set for those. For Horror-a-thon, I do, so we will be going over that at the end of the video. Alright, so the first book that I finished is Flux by Jinwoo Chong, and I gave this 4.75 stars. Well, this book started off slow. It did quickly pick up pace around the 40% mark. From there on out, it just kind of felt non-stop and utterly amazing. I was getting a little bit irritated with my coworkers talking to me, because every time they talked to me, I had to hit pause on the audiobook and answer their questions. So that tells you how good it is. I was going to do a more in-depth review, but I generally don't know how without spoiling everything in the book. So, rapid fire. There's time travel, but it's not apparent. There's a story of a family falling apart and their attempts to fix it over the years. There's a story of love and acceptance and figuring out who you are as a person. And there's a story of righting the wrongs in your past. Now, I read this for the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do prompt: queer rainbow bi or pan character. The second book that I have finished is Monstrous by Nicole Rubino. I also gave this 4.75 stars. This book was nothing like I was expecting it to be, in the best of ways. I went into this figuring that it was just like a run-of-the-mill new adult romance with a little bit of mystery and intrigue thrown in, and I was very, very, very wrong. Well, it does have some romance elements. Uh, there is no happily ever after. At least not in this book. I don't know about the series yet. So you can't call it a romance. And there was a mystery within a mystery within a mystery. It was like a little nesting doll of mysteries. Uh, uh, it was amazing. My biggest complaint was the miscommunication between really all of the characters, but specifically the main character, Ree, and everybody else. They're like brand new freshmen at college. There's still a lot of learning how to communicate with people, and it shows. And even though that was annoying, it does add conflict to the book, which we need. Uh, the whodunit portion of the book was very intriguing, and although I did guess the culprit, I didn't guess the mastermind. Let's say that. So I'm very excited to read books 2 and 3. I'm pretty sure there's 3. I read this for the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, Staircase Trilogy. I have 3. And the TBR Harvest Scavenger Hunt for Teeth on the cover. The third book that I read was Clever Girl by Hannah McGregor. This was 5 stars. It is 112 pages. It is feminist and queer look retelling at Jurassic Park. I am not huge into nonfiction, so getting myself to read it is a little bit difficult, and I normally struggle, but I did not struggle with this. I really resonated with the author in multiple ways, but especially for being fat and queer and too much or too loud. They say, after I watched Jurassic Park, I realized I had another option before me, and that was to become monstrous. And this first quote from the first chapter just crawled under my skin and makes me feel seen in a very intimate way. There are several quotes like that throughout the book, and I think that if you're in any way weird or freaky or outside of norm, this book will resonate with you. I did read this for the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do nonfiction prompt, and it's feminist and queer essays, so we're gonna just make that the subgenre. I did also read it for the TBR Harvest Scavenger Hunt green cover because, oh, that's green. Book 4 was A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. I gave this 4.5 stars. I love this. I love Samantha Shannon. I loved Priory of the Orange Tree, but this was so slow. And it wasn't just a little bit of slowness. It was like 20 hours of slowness because it's a 40-hour audiobook, and I didn't feel like it really picked up pace until like the 50% mark. And that's just a lot of book to slog through before it picks up pace. And maybe it's because I was just struggling with this audiobook. Something about maybe the narrator and the way that it's written / read. I just really struggled. The point of view switches confused me every single time they happened. Every single time that they happened. And so it was really hard to listen to it. I have this in paperback, and I think around Christmas I am going to do a reread of it, but with the physical copy, and hopefully I will be able to remember what happened, enjoy the story more, etc. This was for the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, secret prompt number 3, which was to either listen to an audiobook while you're doing a craft, or read a book with a craft on the cover that the characters do on page. So I of course, crafted. While reading this book, I started making a hat. I built 2 bookshelves with my partner. I did a bunch of writing, and I made a DM screen, which I have. Lean out of frame. So for 8 hours, I made this DM screen. There's one side of it, and the other flap, and then inside is another fabric. And the idea is I'm probably going to add pockets to it on the inside at some point, and that way I can do like little note cards. I had a bunch of them, but just like notebook, little like 3x5 notebook cards, and I can stick those in the pockets with little like cheat sheets on them. I might use this for another prompt. If I do, it's going to be the by the hundreds prompt, because I think this book is 700 to 800 pages. So I'll probably use it for that. Book 5 was 3 Minutes to Midnight by L.M. Hatchell. I gave this 4 stars. The main character, Phoenix, is a hybrid, the first of her kind, and there's a prophecy about her that says she will destroy mankind. But all Phoenix wants to do is be a human who works at a bar with her friend. She doesn't want anything to do with the magical world. This story was more in-depth and better than I was expecting it to be. I thoroughly enjoyed the story, even if I felt the world building and the characters were a little bit flat. I did guess the bad boy. I guessed the bad guy almost immediately. I'm thinking like it was 15 pages in maybe, when I was like, oh, it's him. But there was still some twist that I did not expect. I will be finishing this series. I am going to get book 2 and book 3 to read it. However, I'm thinking I'll get them at the library because I don't think I'll ever want to read them again. So there's no point in buying them, even as like digital books. So I did read this for the TBR Harvest prompt, Non-Human, and the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do prompt, Spooky Creatures, specifically Fae creatures. I think he's gonna jump on me, maybe not. Now for current reads, I am currently reading, there we go, hi buddy. I am currently reading Exquisite Corpse by Poppy Z. Bright. To serial slayer Andrew Compton, murder is an art, the most intimate art. After feigning his own death to escape the prison, Compton makes his way to the United States with the sole ambition of bringing his art to new heights. Tortured by his own perverse desires and drawn to possess and destroy young boys, Compton inadvertently joins forces with Jay Byrne, a dissolute playboy who has pushed his art to limits even Compton hadn't previously imagined. Together, Compton and Byrne set their sights on an exquisite young Vietnamese American runaway named Tran, whom they deem to be the perfect victim. Swiftly moving from the grimy streets of London's Piccadilly Circus to the decadence of the New Orleans French Quarter, Poppy Z. Bright dissects the landscape of torture and invites us into the mind of a killer. Exquisite Corpse confirms Bright is a writer who defies categorization. It is a novel for those who dare trespass where the sacred and profane become one. I am reading this for the September prompt for Suffer-a-thon, which is a year-long project, and this prompt was my cannibal choice, about eating people, because delicious. The next book I am reading, hi buddy, hi, I love you. Can you let me finish my video? Huh? You lay down? Hi, Grog. Yeah. Oh. Oh man, there's a stink bug. He's gonna try and kill it and eat it, and then his breath is gonna stink. Ah, darn. Alright, I'll finish this up real quick. The next book I'm reading is Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. The Manipulator says I can manipulate the emotions of anyone who lets me. I will make you hurt, make you cry, make you laugh and sigh, but my words don't affect him, especially not when I plead with him to leave. He's always there, watching and waiting, and I can never look away, not when I want him to come closer. The Shadow. I didn't mean to fall in love, but now that I have, I can't stay away. I am memorized by her smile, by her eyes, and the way she moves, the way she undresses. I'll keep watching and waiting until I can make her mine, and once she is, I'll never let her go, not even when she begs me to. I'm reading this because a friend has suggested it. I already read Satan's Affair and Where's Molly, and so I'm reading the original duology. But I think I can make it fit into the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, possibly my A to Z challenge. Next, I am reading Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas, which is a queer ghost story about magic, acceptance, and what it means to be your true self, from the instant New York Times bestselling author Aiden Thomas. Yadriel has summoned a ghost, and now he can't get rid of him. In an attempt to prove himself a true brujo and gain his family's acceptance, Yadriel decides to summon his cousin's ghost and help him cross into the afterlife. But things get complicated when he accidentally summons the ghost of his high school resident bad boy, Julian Diaz. And Julian won't go into death quietly. The two boys must work together if Yadriel is to move forward with his plan, but the more time Yadriel and Julian spend together, the harder it is to let each other go. And this is being read for the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do prompt queer rainbow in the trans spot. So since our last episode went up, the Booktuber bingo of TBR Harvest started, and while my card number 3, was off to a rough start. After the second drop of prompts, I have much more to choose from. I do still need to pick out the books that I will be reading for each of these, but for now, I have to read a middle grade book, read a book that gives me nostalgia, read a book about a creature, read a book outside of my comfort zone, read a Victorian book, and read a book that I want to read right now. Since some of these have some crossover potentiality, I might read like a middle grade book that gives me nostalgia. Or, since middle grade is already outside of my comfort zone, read a middle grade book that is outside my comfort zone, etc. But we'll see how that plays out. Going forward, I might separate these videos out so that I'm not doing all of the reading challenges at once. Those videos, so it'll be like every other Monday will be crafting with Lizzie. Tuesdays will be the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, and a Suffer-a-thon update, because the Suffer-a-thon only has like one prompt a month-ish. Wednesday will be TVR Harvest update, and then Thursday will be the Horror-a-thon and the Hocus Pocus Readathon updates, at least for the month of October. I think that's doable. or I can just do a longer video with all of them. We'll see how I'm feeling. And if you guys have a preference, let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know, what are you reading this October? Are you reading anything spooky? Are you reading any mystery or horrors or thrillers? Let me know and we can talk about them. Toodaloo!